Hello again. Today we're going to remove the delivery bin assembly, show you how to repair it, talk about some of the components. We're also going to take the port door assembly out. The delivery bin, of course, is this door right here, which delivers the product to the customer, and at this point we'll go around the back side so you can see the mechanics of it. Alright, to remove the delivery bin assembly, you're going to need a couple of tools. You're going to need a 11/32 deep well socket extension. You can either use a regular drive, extension and socket, or you can adapt something like this young man has done right here. In either case, you're going to need to get all the way into the front of the machine to remove the delivery bin, and then we'll talk about the port door. Alright, let's begin. We're going to start by removing the cash box. We're going to remove the cash box housing using a 7/16 socket, 3 nuts and 3 carriage bolts coming in from the side of the machine. Now, if you'll notice, there are 2 11/32 nuts on top of posts mounted to the front of the machine. You're going to loosen those about halfway out. You got them? Okay. Now the third one is located directly inside the side. You'll notice right here there's a little dimple on the side of the cabinet. Go ahead and pull it completely out. Now he was able to grab the nut, but sometimes they'll fall off. Now, hold on just a second. There's a catch to this. First thing you're going to do is push the port door down. Reach up in there. You'll have to manipulate past the spring in the front. And with that, we can lift the port door completely off, or the delivery bin completely off. And remove it. You'll want to unplug the harness going to the control board. At this point, we can gain access to the port door. Port door is commonly called the guillotine door. It's the one that opens and allows the product to pass through to the bin assembly. Many times the spring on the front or the back will come loose, and you'll have to gain access. On the newer models, there's now anti-vandalism covers that go over all of this. If you're just changing the plastic on this early model, you can do that without removing the entire door, but if you've got the anti-vandalism covers on here, you're going to need to remove the entire door. So that's what we're fixing to do now. You need a 3/8 inch socket, and you'll find the 4 nuts, 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. Okay, now we've got the 4 bolts out. We'll go ahead and lift it away from the wall and unplug the port door switch, which is located at the very top. Being careful not to break the wires. Alright, now we're going to take it to the table for an up-close personal discussion of this and the delivery bin. Alright, now we're going to talk a little bit about the components on the port door. The port door, as you can see, has a cherry switch at the very top. That cherry switch sends a signal to the control board, which tells it when the door is down. If that door happens to be down due to a stretched spring, or one spring is broken or missing, the door won't return all the way up to the top. Your indication on the front of the machine will be remove product. There's only one other item in the cabinet that will cause that type of error, and that's in the delivery bin. We'll talk about that shortly. You'll also notice there are two springs. There's one spring there, and the other one is supposedly on the other side. If you'll do the honor of attaching that spring, please, you'll see how it hooks at the top. Some of these, without the anti-cheat or anti-vandalism covers, you can change these springs while it's in the cabinet. Again, you don't have to remove it, but in this case we're doing it just as an example for you, and you simply hook it at the bottom. Also, on this particular cabinet, it is a used cabinet, and we discovered that the other spring is also stretched and bent, so we're going to change it as well. I don't think I can show, hold on a second, let me see if I can get in there. See how that spring is unevenly tensioned right there? Alright, that's an indication the door has been stressed, so we're going to go ahead and change it while we're here, just preventative maintenance. When it comes to that cherry switch, these machines are not rated for outdoors, but even though they're indoors, some of them can sweat a bit. Those cherry switches like to draw a little bit of rust to their screws. Even some of the actuators will tend to rust a little bit. When you're going to change this entire door, and they do break, if you'll turn that thing around, we'll show them the very front lip. That front lip where his finger is right now is what the cup pushes down to open it as it's doing its vend. Those things have been known to break off. In fact, on the newer port doors, they've reinforced that whole thing by putting a metal bracket over it. Alright, we've got an example of the newest port door. If you'll turn those both sideways, you'll see the covers that I'm referring to. On the older unit, you can see the spring and gain access to it. On this one, however, it's covered with this anti-vandalism bracket. You still see the screw here, or the spring here. So that's just a little bit of difference between the two delivery bins. And I misspoke a moment ago, these are port doors. This is an example of the covered anti-vandalism springs, or covers on the anti-vandalism springs, and this is the reinforced door. If you'll notice, it's got a black bracket right here. This is the channel in which you run your nut, or your nut driver through to get to the mounting bolt for the delivery bin. And you'll see you'll just have to push it all the way down to get past this right here. Then you can come through. Earlier on this model, you simply have to go down just slightly enough to clear it, to clear this metal bracket here. Alright, continuing on, we're going to talk about the delivery bin. The delivery bin has, as you can see, is how the customer receives his product. It's on a counterbalance. When the product's in there, it leans out by itself. When the product's gone, it stands up by itself. There's a latch on the side of it, and you're in luck today. The machine we chose to disassemble and reassemble has a bad component here. We're going to have to change it. There's a small pin right there. Lean it back just a little bit, Bob, so you can see it. Nah, lean the cup forward. There you go. There's supposed to be a post right here which catches with that latch when it drops to keep the bin from opening. As soon as the port door goes down, there's two fingers on the port door that cause this latch to drop. The reason you want that bin to lock and not open in this position when the port door is open is because a customer can reach inside there and possibly damage the machine or pinch his finger. So moving on, go ahead and turn it around. We're going to change that inner port door assembly, and you'll get an example, a good example of how to work on that thing. Now, there are two control boards. The top board is the receiver board. There's an LED array that shoots. You're now looking at the bottom board. You'll notice these boards are red. The top one and the bottom are both red. It doesn't matter whether you're using the red board or the green board as long as they're both the same color. The red board has 4 LEDs. The set of green boards have 2 LEDs. And basically they look through the machine. As long as they see light, there's nothing in that delivery bin. When the product is delivered, it is that beam that is broken, and then when it reopens as the customer pulls this product out and stands up, it cancels the credit, ends the VIN cycle, and then allows the machine to go back into operate. Now the bottom LED board is located forward and in the bottom, but you don't have to take the delivery bin to get it out. You're looking at it as you would be laying on the floor looking up under the delivery bin. That one Phillips head screw will take the plate out that the board is mounted to. So you pull the board out, make the change of the board, and slide it back in. You do have to be very, very careful. You have guides here and on the other side that metal plate slides up into. If you miss one or both of those plates, you'll have the same problem you were trying to eliminate, because the LEDs will not shoot straight up through the holes in the bottom of the cab or in the bottom of the delivery bin to the receiver board on top. Now, last thing we want to talk about the latch itself. The latch, as you notice, if you lean that forward, has some peculiar cuts in it. You'll notice here and a longer cut here. The original is like this. The nice thing about the newer latch that you see there is you have to have that particular latch with the odd cuts on the top to work with the port door that has the ladder. Also, if you'll notice, as it's mounted, the newer latch gives you just a little more area to work with on the forward side. In some rare circumstances, we've seen some misalignments between the port door and the delivery bin, to where sometimes that port door lift will be too far forward. By removing the older style and putting the newer one on, you've got more surface area for that lip to grab and to raise up the latch. Alright, now we're going to change the inner port door, the inner bin assembly. That's the plastic portion. Most often it's replaced because these plastic bosses break off. The earlier cabinets had bolts and nuts, carriage bolts and nuts that went in here. They'd come loose. What we're going to do is show you how to change that. First, you're going to lay it down on the side that does not have the latch. You want to put latch side down, and you're going to remove 8 screws. These two, the 2 he's removing, and these 2 here. Okay, once you've got your 8 screws out, you simply lift that side off of the bin assembly. Now you'll lift the inner bin assembly out, just like that, and we'll insert the new one here. Now, whenever we got it tore down like this, we're going to go ahead and replace the bearings. They're simply Teflon bearings. For some reason, Royal has chose to change the color from white to blue. You want to make sure they go into the hole from the inside. If you go the other way, they'll walk out. Also, as far as troubleshooting goes, any reason that the door will not stand up on its own, you'll want to look at the bearings. Make sure the bosses are not broken, and then make sure these bearings are in place. Now we'll take the plastic inner portion of the door assembly, or bin assembly, lay it right down inside, making sure you line up the pin that was missing on the last door. Now, first off, you'll want to make sure everything lines up. Make sure you're getting your lower emitter board lined up, and you'll put 1 or 2 screws in. I usually don't tighten the screws until I get them all in and then go back around and tighten them up in case you have to slip or slide or something. Move the bin around a little bit. Okay. Alright, once we get all our nuts, or I'm sorry, all the screws back in place, the bin assembly complete, we're going to stand it up and make sure our latch rises and lowers freely. Alright, we want to make sure that our bin locks. Now the pin that was broken off of the other door, sometimes you'll find that when they don't slide, raise it up, lean it out, let go. No, let go of the bin. You see how it stands up by itself? If that pin is bent and dragging on either the upper or the lower portion of that slide, or this banana shaped slot, you're going to possibly find that's the reason for dragging. The other reason for dragging and not standing up will probably be one of the bosses are either loose if you're using the earlier style with the carriage bolt and the nut, or the plastic bosses that they've gone to now, the molded plastic bosses, are cracked. And as you can see, it latches, holds the door locked in place so that the customer can't open the door prematurely during the bin process. Alright, visiting the port door one more time because we skipped a little bit. That port door can be changed on the older style units, can be changed without taking the whole thing out. We're going to demonstrate how to do that now. If you'll notice, on the very bottom of that door is a latch that's pulled forward. If you'll push it back in, now if you'll slide the delivery door, well, you'll want to disconnect the springs first. Alright, now allow the port door to fall. You'll find that there's actually slots at the bottom of the stroke that the port door can lift right out of. And there you go. If you have one that's broken or cracked and you need to replace it, it's easily done in the machine if you have the port door assembly without the anti-vandalism covers for the springs. Also, we want to talk about each of the 4 guides, which slides up and down, has a metal bushing. Metal bushings must be in place because there'll be too much slack in the door. It's going to cause it to bind. And why don't I move it to where you can see it? There you go. Little metal bushing. Make sure they go in place and go into the bin or into the metal housing. Now just slide it up. Place a spring in place. And don't forget to rebend your the stop down at the bottom. Again, this can be done while the port door assembly is still bolted to the sidewall of the door. Alright, now we're going to reassemble. The first thing you want to do is connect the wire back to the port door switch. Stand it up in there and line up the holes. Now be careful not to pinch your wires. There's a lot of wire bundles down there. And you'll need to slide the door down to get up under. There you go. Line up one hole, set your bolt, and then you can set all the other bolts. Alright, and when we finish putting that back in, now we turn our attention to the delivery bin. What you're going to do is simply hook it under the 2 nuts on the top bolts being sure you don't get the harnesses under there, and then settle it down in on the two lower nut bolts. Now you can't see them, but you'll get the feel. You'll know when you're there. Alright, so we've got our 4 nuts back in the delivery bin. You want to double check your latch first of all. Make sure the delivery bin opens. Okay, now we'll push down on the port door. There you go. Make sure the port door won't open. With the port door down, make sure the bin does not open. So we know the interlock is working correctly and the bin is installed correctly. And that's the end of this presentation. You'll want to make sure you plug in your upper sensor board. Now we're also going to do a little bit of a feature of function testing. Everything that we showed you with the switches and the sensor boards can be tested in function testing, and we'll show you that in a little bit. You can view that film.